Hey everybody! So today we're going to do another Galactic Center diary entry. This one is another one from Nyx from Wales. I love how she writes and how she puts things, so I wanted to read this other entry that she sent over. She's calling these Galactic Gatherings, which I fucking love the name. But first I want to mention thank you all so much for everybody that sent me stuff about the GC that made the news this week. There were a lot of people that sent me stuff. Thank you so much for thinking of me and wanting to send that my way. I definitely have some thoughts about that stuff too. I'm not sure if I'll do a video about that this week or next week, but I definitely do have some thoughts that we'll talk about. And if it gets noisy, it's because the person behind me is doing some sort of woodwork. I don't know what, but anyway, just bear with me. Okay, so she starts out by saying, "Hey Ellie, this is Nyx. Thank you for reading out my galactic experiences. I love your channel and I've already learned so much from what you share. You have so much to offer. I look forward to hearing other people's encounters with the GC." And absolutely, if anybody else wants me to read anything that they write about their own experiences like Nyx, or if you actually want to come and talk with me and film it, talk about your experiences with planets conjunct the GC, opposite the GC, or squaring the GC, let me know. We'll set something up. I'll put where you can find me, my email in the description box below. Okay, so it says, "The longest week of my life. What happens when you eat the ambrosia from the other world, more galactic gatherings? The other insights I'd add into the cauldron of my relationship with the Galactic Center are my experiences with time. I think there is an infinite mix we can add into the brew regarding our encounters with the GC if we tap into our memories deeply enough." Now, what she's going to talk about here is going to be like time distortion. And I know that this isn't necessarily I know that there are people that have like planets that aren't conjunct the GC or square the GC or opposing the GC that have had the same kind of experience. But I do wonder if perhaps it is more common for people that have the galactic grand cross lit up in some way. I know that in my own personal experiences, I feel like this has happened to me as well. So I think it's an interesting thing that she brings up here. So when I've described my experiences with time distortion to others, they really don't know how to respond and basically just take them with a pinch of salt. Although those in the astrological community, shamanism, and psychology have proved to be the kind who grasp concepts of time distortion the most. One example of my encounters around this dynamic happened just before I left home when I was 19. I took a trip away to Scotland for a week. It was my first time away alone, and it was a really big deal, as being a reclusive hermit who wouldn't even, who wouldn't even walk to the nearest shops alone. My entire family were in shock that the shy autistic girl who they had known for so long was all of a sudden traveling hundreds of miles to a strange place to meet a distant cousin she had never met before, following my heart and pursuing my love of songwriting. I needed to meet other creative people, and rural Scotland is where it led me. I loved my 1 week trip away there, and it changed my life. However, I came back deeply disturbed due to a sense of time distortion I had never experienced before, and never heard anyone else having this happen to them, only in myth and fairy tales. Now, I kind of understand the part where like she just kind of did something on a whim that other people didn't really understand. I know that I do this myself. I do the same thing. Like every once in a while, I'll just kind of be like, "Oh, I'm going to do this." It's like other people are like, "Where the fuck did that come from?" It happens. All my family thought I had been gone a week, but to me, I was away for several months. I feel like I had deeply changed and morphed into a totally different person and met so many interesting people and had new experiences that there was no way so much rich connection could take place in a mere week. On my way back home, I cried for 8 hours on the couch and wandered the rest stations, wailing like a banshee, my face full of tears, no one stopping to ask if I was okay, just giving me strange looks. I was deeply disturbed and didn't know why. I was so full and happy of my holiday, but I was very confused at the time distortion. When I arrived home, I was crying again, looking around at my family home. I had left a week before and not fully recognizing what I was seeing. It felt like everything had changed. No drugs or alcohol were ingested during this time, yet it felt like what I can only imagine an acid trip to be like, which was probably felt fucking crazy. I take this experience to be Neptune merging with the Galactic Center, something psychologists with no astrological understanding would fail to grasp, though their only theories of time distortion, from what I've heard, are still interesting and have a basis. as do many myths over millennia of characters and stories going on new journeys and visiting magical worlds only to be gone for minutes, days, or weeks in their reality, yet to them it felt like years. From my own digging and research since then, trying to decipher what it was that happened to me, I gradually pieced it together from myth and legend, and then psychology, and more recently astrology, and even more recently the Galactic Center. It all seems to fit and add up. Psychology and myth and shamanism, which is our ancient form of psychology, informs us that time distortion happens to those newly initiated into a new phase or cycle on their journey. When something big and impactful happens to us, it changes our whole outlook. Things happen outside of time. But many people either don't register this, suppress it, or fail to experience it at all. And what Ellie mentioned in one of her videos regarding the morphing linked with the GC got me thinking and triggered these memories of it. So yes, I can confirm from personal experience that there is a morphing and a distortion, a shape-shifting linked with having planets close to the GC. 2 months after my trip to Scotland, I went back there to live, as one of the people I met there was my first partner, John. He was a shaman and claimed to shapeshift himself. He had Chiron bang on conjunct the GC, which I could see the shaman thing with Chiron being involved for sure. And I have another story regarding this, as he was great, as this was greatly synchronous. I probably am pronouncing that wrong, like I do most things. John had an affinity for birds, especially crows, and always said that he could travel inside their minds. The first night I went to live with John, I had a very vivid dream of a spinning Native American medicine woman around my bed, and she told me to look after him. I woke up and told this dream to John, who said that my cousin, who was a dear friend of his and who I'd met him through, had also had the same dream. I also think the location added to this, as my bedroom was right next to a huge old yew, I think it's yew tree, and our 500-year-old house was said to be built on an old Scottish Druidic shrine site. I have since had an affinity for yew trees. The synchronistic encounter I referred to happened when John was away. I was walking to the mailbox up a country track when suddenly this huge white snowy owl flew very close past me to my right at head height, and it turned its head to acknowledge me. This was in broad daylight. It felt like it happened in slow motion. If this encounter wasn't enough awe to take in at once, then I got to my mailbox a few feet from where this encounter took place, and there waiting for me was a card from John. I opened it, and on the front was a painting of a white snowy owl turning its head to the very same side, a simple message inside saying he misses me and will be back soon. I know it sounds like something from a Harry Potter book, but my life is full of strange little encounters like this, and I associate them with my Sun Neptune conjunction to the Galactic Center. I lived in Scotland for a further 2 years until John suddenly died of a brain tragic brain aneurysm. I can't read, apparently. Again, another time distortion. To me, my 2 years living with John in Scotland have always felt like at least a decade. I traveled, went to festivals, met so many people, and had a dream job in music and art sales. I was living my dream life. It might have been 2 years on the surface, out of reality, but in my core soul, I knew it was far longer. I don't expect others to understand my strange encounters with time distortion and morphing of reality, but those who do have a special place in my heart. I totally understand that, like when you spend time with somebody and you maybe didn't spend that much time with them, but it feels like you spent centuries. And I mean that in a good way. Like you can also have situations with people where like you'll spend a short amount of time with them and it'll feel like centuries and it drags, you know. But what she's talking about is not the kind that drags. It's not. It's a lovely kind of comfortable feeling like you spent centuries with them or what have you. And I'm so sorry about that he died that way. That is very tragic. But yeah, definitely the time distortion thing. I would be curious to hear what you all have to say about that have planets conjunct or opposing or squaring. If you feel like there have been times in your life where time seemed to move much, much, much faster than it did for everybody else, or much, much, much slower even. Same thing with the connections with people. I would be curious what you all have to say about that. Or if you have any thoughts at all. And I'm going to go ahead and jump off because that is loud as fuck over there. I'm going to go ahead and swim in my son's kiddie pool. There's a dinosaur, the sad little basketball hoop. It's not really sad, but it just won't stand up. Anyway, if you want to do your own like Galactic Center diary entry, let me know. Again, I can either read it like I do for the ones that Nyx has done, or I can, or we can talk face to face on Zoom or what have you and film it. Okay, well, I will see you all later.